We stand at a critical juncture in human understanding, one where we must decisively tear down the comforting and insidious lie that has been persistently whispered into the collective ear of our materialistic society for centuries. The belief that death signifies nothing more than a final absolute cessation, a dreamless sleep from which there is no awakening, the definitive terrifying point of non-existence. This deceptive notion, convenient for the lazy and comforting to the morally inert, acts as a dangerous narcotic for the human consciousness, a spiritual opiate for all those who stubbornly refuse to face the ultimate demanding responsibility of their own personal choices and deeds. It encourages a life lived for the fleeting moment, devoid of consequence beyond the grave, allowing the pursuit of ephemeral physical pleasure and accumulation without the fear of eternal, inescapable accountability. This shallow perspective is a philosophical and moral dead end, designed to keep the spirit chained to the grossest material concerns, preventing the essential elevation of thought. According to the foundational truths unveiled by the spirits through the work of Allan Kardec, the reality that awaits us is infinitely more intricate, breathtakingly vivid, and, for many unprepared souls, profoundly unsettling and even terrifying. The persistence of individual, fully operational consciousness after the physical body ceases its biological functions is not merely a rare anecdote or an anomaly reported by a few close-call survivors. It is the universal, immutable rule of creation. The real shattering jolt of the transition is not the sensation of dying, which is often gentle for the prepared, but the overwhelming discovery of finding oneself violently, brilliantly, and unmistakably alive in a new dimension, at the very moment when all conventional terrestrial logic insists that one should have utterly vanished. It is the sudden, stark realization that the self has not only survived, but is now operating under a new, hyper-aware set of sensory and mental laws, having shed the numbing limitations of the physical form. The journey we are about to explore begins exactly at this point of immediate, undeniable awakening, where the spirit, now truly free, begins to reap the instantaneous consequences of the life it just concluded. It is a journey into the mechanics of the soul, the law of cause and effect, and the irrefutable truth that our destiny is forged not after, but during, the span of our existence on earth. The time for blind belief is over. We are called to embrace the logic of the spirit and the science of the soul. Picture this ultimate scene of transition, an event witnessed by all but experienced differently by each. You stand or float or simply exist, feeling more fully animated, more lucid, and more definitively yourself than you ever did while constrained by the flesh. Yet, mere feet away, lies your recent dwelling, your physical body, now a still, pale, and unresponsive effigy. It is in this charged, immediate aftermath of separation that the universe, governed by perfect spiritual law, presents the spirit with a metaphorical fork in the road, symbolized by two distinct doors. The key necessary to unlock one of these doors was not provided at birth, nor is it handed out at the moment of death. Rather, it was painstakingly and meticulously forged day by day through the essence of the life you chose to lead on earth. For the soul that consciously and consistently chose to live for the enduring spirit, that selected selfless love as its unwavering moral compass and made active charity its primary defining path, understanding with clarity that all material assets, wealth, status, physical beauty, were nothing more than temporary tools and fleeting instruments of passage. The arrival of physical death is experienced as an overwhelming, glorious ecstasy of genuine liberation. This door swings open into a breathtaking, radiant vista. It is the soul's equivalent of a deep-sea diver who has spent an entire existence within the crushing pressure and perpetual gloom of the deepest oceanic trenches, finally bursting through the surface tension to inhale the pure, untainted atmosphere and gaze upon the warm, welcoming light of the sun for the very first time. The transition is marked by a sensation of lightness, buoyancy, and an instantaneous, profound peace that extinguishes all former terrestrial anxieties and sorrows. The door that opens for this soul leads directly to the light, to a state of sublime serenity, and to an anticipated, joyful, and deeply felt reunion with the spiritual family, the loved ones, mentors, and benevolent spirits who have been patiently and eagerly awaiting their safe return. This soul, by virtue of its elevated vibrations, is magnetically drawn to spheres of harmony and constructive effort. having earned its rest and the privilege of higher learning. But for the deeply attached soul, the one who foolishly chose to tightly chain its entire identity and sense of worth to the fragile, crumbling pillars of material wealth, fleeting social status, earthly power, perishable physical appearance, or various forms of enslaving vice, the moment of death is the commencement of a terrifying personal apocalypse. All that defined their earthly self is instantly, irrevocably shattered, dissipating like smoke in a fierce wind. The key forged by this life of material fixation and egoism opens the door not to light, but to terrifying chaos. This spirit is immediately plunged into a disorienting vortex of intense confusion and profound distress, a kind of waking, conscious nightmare where the mind, now ruthlessly stripped of the anesthetizing influence of the physical body, is forced to confront the colossal emptiness and spiritual penury of its own recent existence. The spirit is bound, not by physical chains, but by the intense magnetic pull of the lower vibrations it cultivated, making its first experience of the beyond one of isolation and deep, self-inflicted spiritual poverty. To fully grasp the mechanics of the soul's fate, we must delve into the concept of the perispirit, the subtle semi-material envelope that interconnects the purely immaterial spirit with the gross physical body. This fluidic body, borrowed from the universal cosmic fluid, is the fundamental link, the crucial bridge between thought and action, spirit and matter. The perispirit serves a vital dual function. It is the instrument through which the spirit exerts its influence on the physical body, enabling all sensations and actions, and more significantly, it functions as the definitive, comprehensive magnetic archive, the ethereal dossier of the soul itself. Here in this fluidic tapestry, every single intention, every passing thought, every single selfish deliberation, and every act of kindness or malevolence is recorded with an indelible, flawless precision. This process is immediate and continuous, operating under the law of fluidic action. Your thoughts are not passive, transient wisps. They are dynamic, energetic forms that instantly impact the quality, color, and density of your perispirit. Pure, charitable, elevated thoughts impart a radiant luminosity and an ethereal fineness, elevating the spirit's own frequency. Conversely, base, envious, prideful, or cruel thoughts deposit impurities, creating a heavy, dense, and darkened fluidic substance. These accumulated fluidic impurities are not abstract. They are the tangible, measurable components of the spirit's spiritual maturity, or lack thereof. At the moment of disincarnation, these accumulated fluidic recordings are instantly, powerfully activated. The spirit's reaction to this inescapable internal dossier, whether a profound, paralyzing sense of remorse, a futile, aggressive denial, or a quiet acceptance leading to immediate readjustment, becomes the very first conscious act of its life as a liberated spirit. This initial state sets the tone for its immediate post-mortem existence. Therefore, the so-called divine justice, often misunderstood as a judgment handed down from a lofty, temperamental celestial judge, is revealed to be something far more elegant, scientific, and relentless. It is, in the true Kardecian sense, the cold, automatic, and unerringly precise harvest of the soul's own meticulous sowing. The spiritual environment the soul awakens into is not a random location chosen by fate. It is a spiritual region of similar vibrational density, instantly and magnetically attracted by the quality of the spirit's own perispirit. The spirit is its own judge, executioner, and salvation, experiencing the direct and immediate projection of its own moral state onto its new reality. For the soul burdened by materialism and vice, the spiritual process of dying, known as disincarnation, bears no resemblance to the easy act of simply slipping out of a suit of clothes. Instead, as the teachings reveal, it is excruciatingly comparable to a severe protracted amputation, performed without the merciful buffer of anesthesia. The powerful fluidic connections that serve to tightly anchor the perispirit to the dense physical body are anything but delicate filaments. They are deep, tenacious, gnarled roots that have inextricably interwoven themselves with every major organ, every nerve center, and every specialized fluidic center of force commonly referred to as the chakras in various traditions. The definitive separation process, the ultimate disconnection, constitutes a brutal spiritual surgery that can be drawn out and intensely painful, particularly when the death is violent, sudden, or unexpected. The cordon fluidico, often poetically known as the silver cord, the vast main conduit of vital energy that constantly connects the two bodies, does not break with a soft, gentle snap. It is instead violently stretched, severely attenuated, and painfully frayed, often accompanied by profoundly distressing sensations of anguish and physical, spiritual pain that are almost unimaginable to the living mind. This suffering is not arbitrary. It adheres rigorously to the law of affinity and fixation. The spirit suffers most intensely in the area where it most deeply and obsessively concentrated its primary earthly interests. For the individual whose life was dominated by gluttony and the pursuit of endless physical satiation, the disconnection of the gastric center of force results in a prolonged agony of insatiable, agonizing, spiritual hunger. For the individual dedicated to a life of dissolute, unbridled sexual pleasure and fixation, the violent separation from the genesic center becomes a sustained torment of frustrating, perpetual, and unfulfilled desire. For the deeply avaricious soul, whose very hands were the tools of constant anxious counting and material accumulation, the disconnection is felt as if their very limbs are being agonizingly ripped away. The spirit's focus and fixation creates a powerful vortex that stubbornly resists the natural liberation process. Conversely, the spirit who lived simply, prioritizing moral duty and love, experiences a transition so swift and gentle that the separation of the cord is often perceived as nothing more than an instant of serene, deep sleep, followed by a blissful, immediate awakening in light. Once the final binding fluidic link is definitively severed, the newly freed spirit, especially one unprepared by self-reflection and virtue, immediately plunges into a state the spirits termed perturbation. This single mild word is utterly insufficient to capture the existential horror and sensory chaos of the experience. Perturbation is not simply a temporary fog or mild confusion. It is, in essence, a state of complete sensory and social incarceration, a terrifying, inescapable prison constructed entirely out of the spirit's own ignorance, fear, and low vibrational residue. Imagine yourself trapped in the most visceral, inescapable, recurring nightmare, one where the laws of reality have been maliciously inverted. You find yourself haunting your own former dwelling or moving among familiar crowds, yet you realize with mounting horror that absolutely no one, not a single person, can perceive your presence, hear your desperate pleas, or respond to your frantic movements. You might try desperately to utilize a familiar object, perhaps reaching for a loved one's hand, or attempting to grasp the telephone to beg for assistance, only for your hand to pass cleanly and uselessly through the solid physical matter. You witness your immediate family weeping and grieving, and you try with all your remaining might to utter consoling words or offer a reassuring touch, but your voice is reduced to a breath in a vacuum, your hand passing through them as if you were a faulty, transparent hologram. The initial panic, fueled by the terrifying illogical nature of this new state, rapidly escalates into a crescendo of genuine, mounting terror, which eventually subsides into a profound, suffocating sense of resigned desperation. This bewildering, isolating experience is the harsh reality for countless newly disincarnated spirits. The executive who lived solely for the acquisition of power futilely attempts to issue commands in his former office, only to be utterly ignored by his living successor. The woman who dedicated her life to the relentless cult of vanity spends what feels like agonizing hours before a mirror, desperately searching but finding only the reflection of the surrounding room, never succeeding in catching a glimpse of her own current, disembodied image. The state of perturbation is the ego's confrontation with its own irrelevance, the terrifying discovery that one's deeply cherished identity was utterly dependent on a physical form that is now rapidly decomposing. The experience of perturbation is not monolithic. It stretches across a vast moral and intellectual spectrum, resulting in dramatically different experiences. For the spirit who was merely ignorant of the profound spiritual laws, whose life was perhaps simple, morally neutral, but lacking deep reflection, the experience is typically characterized by acute confusion, intellectual disorientation, and intense, crushing loneliness. This form of perturbation is often shorter in duration as the spirit lacks the specific fluidic density of malice or guilt, making it easier for benevolent spiritual assistants to reach and soothe them. However, for the deliberate evildoer, for the hardened criminal, for the soul characterized by prolonged cruelty and systematic moral transgression, the perturbation transforms into a terrifying, sustained, and highly specific ordeal, a truly lucid, self-constructed hell. This tormented spirit is not merely confused, they are profoundly, terrifyingly haunted. Stripped bare of the physical body's anesthetic effect, their highly sensitive spiritual consciousness is forcibly compelled to relive every single one of their committed crimes. But the critical difference is that they now relive them not only from the vantage point of the perpetrator, but also instantaneously experiencing the agonizing pain, the crushing fear, and the profound, life-ending despair of their own victims. The law of affinity operates here with merciless precision. The malicious spirit is instantaneously attracted to and tormented by the very thoughts of hatred, vengeance, and loathing that their actions generated, creating an ever-present, suffocating cloud of psychic negativity. Furthermore, they may find themselves surrounded by other spirits of similar moral depravity, fraudsters encountering only deception, assassins surrounded by palpable fear, creating a chaotic environment of perpetual distrust and mutual suffering. Time, in this state, loses all familiar terrestrial reference points. The sun and the moon are irrelevant. Time is now measured solely by the relentless, brutal intensity of the spirit's own mental agony and remorse. A single day of profound guilt, relived with agonizing clarity and hypersensitivity, can easily stretch out into what the spirit perceives as centuries of unbearable torment, trapping them in a debilitating, vicious cycle of suffering that is entirely self-imposed. The spirit's prison is not constructed of iron bars or stone walls. It is woven from the very fabric of its own diseased, guilt-ridden, and perpetually active consciousness. This is the reality of the umbral, the zone of purification and compulsory confrontation, where the spirit is forced to stare at the terrible mirror of its own making without distraction. For the freshly disincarnated spirit, their enforced attendance at their own funeral ceremony becomes a moment of such raw, unvarnished spiritual truth that it holds the power to either utterly devastate the soul or, conversely, act as the first essential catalyst for its eventual spiritual salvation and reawakening. The sensory perception of the newly released spirit is enhanced to an insufferable degree, far beyond the capabilities of the living. This state includes a devastating, total and unfiltered form of telepathy. The spirit doesn't simply feel the ambient emotional tone of the room. They are capable of hearing the complex, private, often contradictory, and deeply revealing inner monologue of every single person present, with the crystalline clarity of a secret whispered directly into their ear. The internal minds of the mourners are laid bare, transformed into an open, unavoidable book, and the truths the spirit reads there are, in the vast majority of cases, profoundly disheartening and isolating. The spirit instantly perceives a harsh cacophony of trivial, deeply mundane, and often shockingly selfish thoughts. They register the nephew mentally calculating his percentage of the inheritance, the co-worker impatiently clocking the time and thinking about a critical meeting scheduled for Monday morning, or the acquaintance offering tearful condolences to the widow while their inner thought is focused on the result of a local football game. This torrent of triviality, spiritual superficiality, and thinly veiled egoism delivers a brutal, instantaneous shock of reality that utterly pulverizes the idealized image the deceased may have harbored concerning the depth and sincerity of their own personal relationships. It provides absolute, undeniable proof of their actual importance, or more often the staggering lack thereof, in the authentic inner lives of those who have gathered around their remains. In sharp contrast to the distressing cacophony of superficial thought and self-serving emotion at the funeral, the act of a single, sincere, heartfelt prayer emerges as a profound spiritual miracle. The verbal tributes, the exaggerated eulogies, and the flowery words of exaltation often grate upon the spirit's hypersensitive consciousness like the sound of grinding metal when those words are not fully underpinned by a core of genuine, unfeigned feeling. The spirit, possessing total telepathy, instantly perceives the jarring dissonance and rank hypocrisy between the smooth spoken word and the raw inner thought, and this exposure acts as a searing acid on its already wounded spiritual consciousness. However, In the very heart of this turbulent storm of falsity and emotional superficiality, a singular, genuine prayer emanating from a heart that loved with purity, that cries with honest, selfless longing, and truly desires the peace and progress of the departed, possesses the power to instantly rupture the enveloping darkness. This prayer acts as a powerful laser beam of pure, focused light and elevated energy. According to the spirits, a prayer is not merely a request, it is a profound energetic transmission. The spirit perceives this elevated energy not through the physical sense of sound, but as a rush of soothing spiritual warmth, a palpable, gentle, reassuring touch, or the enveloping presence of an invisible hand, offering immediate, powerful support and protection. The sincere prayer is the spiritual equivalent of a beacon, an absolute life raft in what otherwise feels like an immense, indifferent ocean of spiritual darkness and isolation. The high, pure vibration of the selfless prayer instantly creates a fluidic harmony, acting as a powerful magnet that draws benevolent, specialized spiritual rescuers to the immediate vicinity, making their work of comforting and extricating the suffering spirit significantly easier and more effective. It is the purest and most potent form of spiritual assistance the living can possibly offer to their departed loved one, transcending all barriers of space and density. Following the tumultuous experience of witnessing the thoughts and feelings of the mourners, the final unavoidable confrontation arrives with the sight of the body itself in the casket. This encounter is not a passive, detached viewing. It is a profoundly charged metaphysical confrontation with the idol that the soul, especially the materialistically oriented one, had worshipped and served with singular devotion throughout its entire earthly existence. That physical body, the vessel the soul meticulously fed, carefully clothed, painstakingly adorned, and ceaselessly pampered, the fundamental instrument of all its ephemeral pleasures and the ultimate symbol upon which it built its entire sense of identity, is now revealed to be nothing more than an irrelevant, rapidly decaying object, a hollow shell being prepared for its final, humbling return to dust. It is in this shattering, unambiguous moment of realization that the ultimate existential question strikes the spirit with the devastating, undeniable force of a seismic event. The fundamental internal query rings out with agonizing clarity. If that thing lying there which I called I, which was the source of my pleasures and the anchor of my status, is not me, then who, fundamentally, am I now? This unprecedented crisis of self-identity, violently triggered by the sight of its own decaying corpse and the brutal, unfiltered perception of the true, unadorned state of its earthly relationships, marks the terrifying but necessary true beginning of the spirit's often long and arduous journey into the spiritual dimension. The spirit is now forced, for the very first time, to acknowledge the radical, inescapable truth that it is not matter but pure thought and will, embarking on a path toward understanding its own true nature, a path that, for many, begins with a wrenching, silent scream of existential confusion and despair. The body, once a source of pride, now becomes a source of intellectual and spiritual liberation, forcing the realization that the true treasures were never external, but internal. In stark, luminous contrast to the tormented passage of the attached soul, the process of death for the spirit that consistently strove for moral perfection, that ceaselessly battled its own deep-seated imperfections, and, despite inevitable stumbles, always rose again to pursue the path of genuine goodness and selfless devotion, unfolds with an incomparable, serene beauty. The transition is experienced as remarkably smooth, gentle, and utterly devoid of physical or spiritual agony. It is often perceived as nothing more than a profound restorative sleep, from which the spirit awakens effortlessly into an environment of absolute, pervasive peace and transcendent light. The process of spiritual rescue for these elevated souls is not a last-minute emergency operation. It is a meticulously planned, highly efficient, and lovingly executed welcome ceremony. Specialized teams of benevolent spiritual assistants, true angels of mercy, who are experts in the delicate mechanics of the transition, locate the spirit immediately. They gently envelop it in powerful, calming, and restorative fluidic energies, aiding the rapid and painless rupture of the very last, tenuous fluidic filaments connecting it to the now useless physical body. There is no confusion, no period of agonizing solitude, and no distress. The very first moments of awakening on the spiritual plane are invariably spent in an environment intentionally designed for tranquility, often resembling a serene spiritual hospital ward, a peaceful retreat, or a breathtaking, lush garden perpetually bathed in a soft inner luminescence. The moment the soul's eyes open, the first vision presented is one of overwhelming, tender, and loving reception. This is neither a dream nor a hallucination. They behold the real, vibrant, luminous faces of parents, cherished grandparents, spouses, and dear friends who had preceded them in the journey to the spiritual homeland. The spiritual embrace that ensues is far more than a simple gesture of deep affection. It is a powerful, instantaneous spiritual transfusion of pure, elevated energies, a deep communication of love from soul to soul, where years of earthly longing and separation are instantly and completely dissolved in a single, exhilarating moment of pure, shared spiritual happiness. This glorious reunion provides the spirit with the immediate, pulsating, undeniable proof that the love it gave and received is, in fact, the one and only true reality, that the temporary illusion of physical death is utterly powerless to break or extinguish. It is an absolute spiritual imperative that you understand the profound, tangible mechanics operating behind the human experience of loss and mourning, because your own ignorant and uncontrolled grief can tragically become a long-term sentence of spiritual bondage and acute torture for the very person you sincerely claim to love. Your uncontrolled, self-centered, and tumultuous despair is not in any way a tribute to the departed. Rather, it functions as a damaging act of energetic vampirism. Every wrenching sob of helpless revolt, every desperate, angry cry of "why me?" and every thought that judges life and the divine plan as profoundly unfair works to create a powerful, chaotic psychic vortex of the lowest possible vibration. The newly disincarnated spirit, still closely and energetically connected to the grieving living by strong, habitual, and effective ties, is instantly and powerfully sucked down into this turbulent spiritual quicksand. Your overwhelming energy, rather than acting as a supportive, loving tribute, becomes an actively detrimental drain, ruthlessly sucking the already delicate spiritual vitality from the one who has just departed. You, in the grip of your own self-centered, desperate pain, inadvertently transform yourself into a psychic parasite, desperately clinging to the anchor of the departed spirit. It is a critical moment for brutally honest self-analysis. Are your tears genuinely for the peaceful progress of the departed soul, or are they exclusively for your own overwhelming sense of personal abandonment and profound, anticipated loneliness? Is your suffering a compassionate act concerning their challenging spiritual journey, or is it a raw manifestation of pure, unadulterated self-pity? In the vast majority of cases, uncontrolled, protracted grief is revealed to be a manifestation of the purest form of spiritual egoism. It is possessive love, not liberating love. Furthermore, this heavy, self-focused, egoistic energy creates a spiritual static so thick and dense in the vicinity of the grieving person and the departed soul that it seriously hinders, and in many severe cases completely prevents, the delicate and crucial work of the specialized rescue teams from the higher spiritual plane. Your destructive despair makes you the inconvenient, disruptive family member who, in their desperate and blind need to express their own agony, ends up fatally compromising and obstructing the critical rescue procedure. Following the essential initial period of recovery, the morally elevated soul is lovingly invited to explore and integrate into its new, true home, one of the countless spiritual colonies that exist within the vast reaches of the universe. It is a critical error to conceptualize these spiritual realms merely as an ethereal, static heaven. Instead, the teachings describe them as vibrant, fully functional, dynamic cities and vast societies whose astonishing architecture and entire landscape are literally plasmated and maintained by the collective, elevated minds of their inhabitants. The light that bathes these incredible environments does not emanate from a physical sun. It is a profound, inner luminescence derived from the moral and intellectual perfection of the beings who dwell there. These colonies are structured around the principle of continuous progress and usefulness. They contain sophisticated edifices that function as true spiritual universities, where the soul engages in the intensive study of the profound eternal laws of reincarnation, the mechanics of cause and effect, and the complex dynamics of spiritual fluidics. There are specialized laboratories where spirits engage in advanced research on the cure for the deep-seated diseases of the soul, and magnificent art ateliers where creative expression is utilized as a powerful form of therapy and a conduit for expressing the divine beauty. There are vast parks of breathtakingly exuberant fluidic nature where the simple act of contemplation becomes a form of profound, silent prayer. However, it is fundamentally vital to understand that this spiritual paradise is not a resort for eternal passive vacationing. The concept of idleness or spiritual stagnation does not exist in the higher spheres. The supreme, continuous joy for the elevated soul resides entirely in engaging in useful work and committing to perpetual, challenging moral and intellectual progress. The recovered soul is instantly invited to participate in activities that perfectly align with its developed aptitudes. This spirit may integrate into specialized rescue teams, dedicate itself to becoming a gentle mentor for recently arrived confused spirits, work tirelessly to provide compassionate assistance to suffering souls in the lower, dense zones of the umbral, or engage in the meticulous, painstaking planning of its own next necessary reincarnation, carefully choosing the specific trials and challenges that will best assist it in purging its last remaining imperfections. The true spiritual homeland is not a finished masterpiece, it is an infinite, dynamic construction site, and the definition of happiness is to be a fully conscious, productive, and joyful worker in the grand, unending, progressive work of divine creation. It is now the moment to definitively discard the archaic, simplistic, and often frightening childish notions of a distant deity who functions as a temperamental, vengeful monarch, arbitrarily dispensing rewards or cruel punishments. The grand eternal truth is revealed to be something far more elegant, beautifully logical, and utterly implacable. The entire universe, in its smallest and largest manifestations, is flawlessly governed by immutable laws, and the most fundamental of these is the law of cause and effect, the principle of spiritual self-determination. This law operates with the same cold, absolute, and utterly impartial precision as pure mathematics. There is absolutely no possibility of bribing it, negotiating concessions, or successfully deceiving its mechanisms. It does not judge your stated intentions. It merely measures the objective, verifiable quality of your innermost thought and your outward action, your vibrational frequency. Every deliberate action, every carelessly spoken word, and most importantly, every single thought you emit is an energetic wave that instantly imprints itself upon your perispirit, fundamentally altering its density, its luminous color, and its energetic frequency. Imagine yourself as a chemist in a divine laboratory. If you spend your single lifetime deliberately mixing the corrosive components of deep-seated hatred, crippling envy, deceitful fraud, and calculated cruelty, the ultimate, unavoidable result is a catastrophic, self-inflicted spiritual explosion of intense suffering. This is not arbitrary chastisement, it is pure spiritual chemistry. It is a predictable, automatic, and logical consequence. Upon separating from the physical body, your dense, darkened, and heavy perispirit will be instantly and irresistibly drawn by a law of magnetic affinity toward those spiritual regions of similarly low vibration, the umbral. This awareness should not be a paralyzing fear, but an urgent, liberating call to action. The life you are living right now, in this precise moment, is actively and continually constructing the very landscape, whether a luminous paradise or a suffocating swamp, upon which your consciousness will inevitably awaken after the final transition. If this message has resonated deep within your soul, consider it not merely as interesting information, but as a spiritual summons, an urgent and undeniable call from your own higher consciousness for an immediate, radical, and profound change of course. Look honestly at your current life, the prestigious title, the car in the garage, the superficial network of followers, the temporary balance in your bank account. All of it constitutes nothing more than ephemeral cardboard scenery. It is a fragile castle of sand that the very first inevitable wave of death will completely and permanently wash away. Building your essential identity upon these fleeting material foundations is the spiritual equivalent of programming yourself for the ultimate despair of the disincarnation. The only true inalienable possessions, the sole treasures that you will successfully carry with you across the frontier of death, are those that are entirely immaterial and immutable. The genuine love you distributed to others, the profound wisdom you diligently accumulated, the patient resignation you developed in trial, the sincere forgiveness you granted, and the tears of suffering you humbly and compassionately wiped away. Therefore, the essential moral task is urgent and cannot be postponed. Today, immediately conduct a moral inventory of your soul, one that is brutally honest and entirely devoid of self-pity. What is the real composition of your true spiritual baggage? What paralyzing spiritual weight is still burdening your soul? The deep-seated resentment against the family member you stubbornly refuse to pardon, the debilitating secret vice that enslaves your will, the consuming pride that prevents you from offering a crucial apology, the destructive inertia that stops you from performing the good that is clearly within your reach. Begin this spiritual purification, this cleansing, this vaccina. Is spiritual right now, not as a meaningless religious ritual, but as an essential, non-negotiable matter of the purest spiritual hygiene. Every single small act of genuine inner reform is a spiritual light that you are actively igniting in your own immediate future. Understand deeply that this journey towards self-improvement is not a selfish, solitary endeavor. We are all inextricably interconnected in a single, vast, invisible, energetic web. When you improve yourself, when you consciously elevate your own individual vibratory frequency, you are not merely saving yourself. You instantly become a small, radiant spiritual beacon. Your growing light serves to illuminate the arduous path for your own family, for your closest friends, and incredibly, it transmits waves of profound strength, comfort, and vital hope to your loved ones who have already departed and are engaged in their own demanding struggles on the spiritual plane. Your committed moral and intellectual progress here on Earth actively sends them restorative waves of energy, powerfully assisting them in their spiritual battles. Life, therefore, is not a meaningless, random journey from a birth to an eventual grave. It is an intensive, mandatory, and meticulously designed training stage, a challenging spiritual school whose sole, ultimate purpose is the complete moral and intellectual education and definitive emancipation of the eternal spirit. Every spontaneous moment of joy is a necessary encouragement. Every moment of pain endured is an indispensable lesson learned, and every single person who crosses your designated path is a meticulously placed, vital teacher. The final glorious objective is not to accumulate material possessions, but to achieve profound, lasting self-improvement. It is not about having more, but about being more. Do not wait for your own funeral for others to offer a superficial, incomplete summary of who you were. Take full ownership and make that essential, life-defining moral inventory yourself, right now, and immediately make the unwavering decision to become the person you desperately wish to be for all of eternity. Your eternity does not begin after the final breath. It is being actively and irrevocably lived and decided in this exact, powerful, and demanding instant.